Your soulmate is angry with you because of your family. The truth they've been hiding. My beloved child, hold your thoughts for just one moment, because what you are about to hear may explain a silence that has puzzled your heart for far longer than you realize. Sometimes the loudest distance between two people is not created by a lack of love. Sometimes it is built by voices that never belonged to either of them. And what if the tension you've been sensing has never been about who you are, but about what someone else has been saying behind closed doors? Stay here for a little longer, because every piece of this story connects to the next, and by the end of this journey, a hidden picture may finally begin to make sense. There are moments when two souls seem ready to move toward each other, yet something invisible keeps interrupting the path. Conversations become shorter. Replies lose their warmth. Plans remain unfinished. At first, it appears confusing. Then it begins to feel personal. You ask yourself whether you made a mistake. You replay old memories. You search for one sentence, one decision, one forgotten moment that could explain the sudden change. But what if you have been searching in the wrong direction all along? Imagine standing outside a house while a conversation takes place inside. You cannot hear every word, but you notice the expressions on the faces through the window. You know something important is happening, yet the details remain hidden from you. That is exactly how many turning points in life unfold. The decision is made somewhere you cannot see. The misunderstanding begins before you even know your name has entered the conversation. Your soulmate has been carrying emotions they have struggled to explain. Not because they wanted to hide the truth forever, but because they feared what would happen if every detail came into the light. They believed silence would protect everyone. Instead, silence only created larger questions. Think about this carefully. When families become involved, emotions often become more complicated than either person expected. Opinions are shared. Assumptions are formed. Stories change as they travel from one person to another. A simple concern can grow into something much larger after passing through several voices. Suddenly, two people who genuinely care about each other find themselves reacting to words that neither of them originally spoke. Have you ever wondered why someone's attitude changed almost overnight? Real change rarely happens overnight. It usually begins quietly. One conversation. One misunderstanding. One opinion repeated often enough that it starts sounding like certainty. Your soulmate reached a crossroads where their heart wanted one direction while outside influences pointed somewhere else. That conflict has been exhausting them more than you know. On the surface they may appear distant, frustrated, or even upset. But beneath those reactions is someone trying to understand which voice deserves their trust. Here's something worth considering. Anger is not always the opposite of love. Sometimes anger grows where expectations were highest. Sometimes disappointment appears because someone imagined a future that suddenly felt uncertain. The emotion itself is rarely the full story. What matters is discovering the reason behind it. Now imagine your name being mentioned during a family discussion. Not with complete understanding. Not with the full picture. Pieces of information arrive without context. Questions appear before answers. Judgments quietly replace curiosity. Without realizing it, your soulmate begins carrying the emotional weight of those conversations. Every meeting with family leaves another question lingering in their mind. Every opinion adds another layer of uncertainty. They never intended to push you away, yet the pressure slowly changed how they responded to you. Pause here for one thought. What if the distance you've been feeling has less to do with rejection, and far more to do with confusion? That possibility changes everything. Because confusion can be cleared. Truth has a way of outlasting assumptions. No matter how complicated the situation appears today, reality has a remarkable habit of revealing itself through patience, consistency, and honest understanding. Still, there is one detail almost no one notices. Your soulmate has been hiding something far deeper than simple frustration. They have been afraid that if they explained everything exactly as it happened, you would misunderstand their intentions. They worried you might believe they chose other opinions over your connection. They feared losing your trust before they had the chance to explain the entire story. So instead of speaking, they waited. Instead of clarifying, they hoped time would somehow solve what silence had created. But silence rarely writes happy endings on its own. Every unanswered question grows louder. Every hidden truth becomes heavier. And somewhere inside them, a realization has already started forming. They know that avoiding the conversation cannot continue forever. The turning point is approaching faster than either of you expects. You may not recognize it immediately when it arrives. It might begin with one unexpected message. One surprising conversation. One honest admission that changes how you view everything that came before. What seemed like anger could suddenly reveal itself as pressure. What looked like distance might actually have been uncertainty searching for courage. Before this chapter closes, keep one possibility close to your heart. The story you have been telling yourself may not be the real story at all. And the truth your soulmate has been hiding is much closer to the surface than anyone realizes. Stay with this journey, because the next piece uncovers what was actually said, why those words carried so much weight, and how one unexpected revelation begins changing the direction of everything. Before you decide what this silence truly means, stay with me for a few more moments, because the next layer of this story reveals something that almost no one notices while they are living through it. The truth did not disappear. It simply became buried beneath assumptions. And once assumptions begin speaking louder than reality, even sincere hearts can lose their direction. Your soulmate never expected a simple family conversation to leave such a lasting mark. It did not begin with shouting. It did not begin with conflict. It began with concern. A few carefully chosen questions. A few opinions shared with confidence. A few warnings repeated often enough that they started sounding like facts. At first, your soulmate listened politely. They believed they could separate their own feelings from everyone else's perspective. But the human mind works in unusual ways. The more a single idea is repeated, the more familiar it becomes. Familiarity can quietly disguise itself as certainty. That is exactly what happened. Someone questioned whether the future would truly be peaceful. Someone wondered whether your personalities would fit together in the long run. Someone interpreted ordinary moments in ways that neither you nor your soulmate ever intended. Each comment seemed small on its own. Yet together, they created a wall that neither of you could actually see. Now imagine carrying those thoughts every single day. Your soulmate wanted to defend what they felt. At the same time, they didn't want to disappoint the people they had trusted their entire life. Their heart was standing between two worlds. One world was built on genuine emotion. The other was built on expectations. Neither side felt easy to leave behind. Have you noticed how people sometimes become quieter when they are fighting battles they cannot explain? Silence often hides inner conflict far better than words ever could. That is why your soulmate's distance has felt so confusing. Their actions have been speaking one language, while their heart has been whispering another. But then something unexpected happened. A conversation occurred that was never supposed to happen. Someone accidentally revealed information your soulmate had never heard before. Details that had been passed from one person to another were no longer matching the original story. Little contradictions began appearing. Questions started replacing certainty. For the first time, your soulmate wondered. What if I accepted a version of events that wasn't completely true? That single question changed everything. Because once doubt enters a misunderstanding, the search for truth quietly begins. Since that moment, your soulmate has been paying closer attention. They've started comparing what others said with what they actually experienced whenever they thought about you. And the difference has become impossible to ignore. Your kindness doesn't match the picture they were given. Your consistency doesn't fit the assumptions they accepted. Your actions have been telling a completely different story. Slowly. Very slowly. The wall that once seemed impossible to cross has started developing small cracks. Here's something many people overlook. Truth rarely arrives all at once. It comes in moments. One realization. One memory. One unexpected connection. Until eventually the entire picture changes. If you've stayed with this story so far, thank you for sharing these moments together. If any part of this journey speaks to your heart, you're welcome to leave your thoughts in the comments. And if stories like this encourage you to look beyond first impressions, subscribing simply helps us continue exploring more meaningful journeys together. Now another question deserves your attention. Why hasn't your soulmate simply told you everything? The answer is surprisingly simple. They are afraid that once every hidden conversation comes into the open, it may sound like an excuse instead of an explanation. They worry you'll believe they lacked confidence. They worry you'll think they trusted other voices more than they trusted their own heart. Yet deep inside, they know that continuing to hide the truth only makes the distance feel greater. That realization is becoming impossible for them to ignore. Something is beginning to shift. Not because circumstances suddenly became perfect, but because honesty has started feeling lighter than silence. The next chapter is where everything changes. You'll discover the unexpected moment that finally pushes your soulmate toward revealing what has remained hidden for so long. And when that moment arrives, The meaning behind every unanswered message, every strange reaction, and every confusing silence will begin fitting together like pieces of a puzzle that was never truly broken, only incomplete. Wait just a little longer, because the moment you've been wondering about is closer than it appears. Sometimes life reaches a point where pretending becomes more exhausting than telling the truth. That is exactly where your soulmate now finds themselves. The silence that once felt safe has become heavier than honesty, and every passing day reminds them that unfinished stories never stay hidden forever. Think about this for a moment. Have you ever carried something important for so long that it slowly became impossible to hide? Not because anyone forced you to speak, but because your own heart refused to stay quiet. That is the place your soulmate has quietly reached. For a long time, they convinced themselves that waiting would somehow solve everything. They believed the tension would fade naturally. They hoped misunderstandings would disappear without difficult conversations. Instead, the opposite happened. Every day they remained silent, another question appeared. Every memory of you returned with greater clarity. Every genuine moment you shared stood in sharp contrast to the picture that had been created around them. They began remembering small things. The way you listened without expecting anything in return. The way you respected people even during difficult moments. The way your actions consistently revealed qualities that rumors never could. Those memories refused to disappear. And once those memories became stronger than outside opinions, something remarkable started happening. Your soulmate stopped asking, "What did everyone else say?" They started asking, "What have I actually experienced?" That single change transformed everything. Because real understanding begins the moment we stop borrowing conclusions from others and start paying attention to reality. Still, one final obstacle remained. Pride. Not the kind that looks confident. The quiet kind. The kind that whispers, "What if I admit I misunderstood? What if they no longer believe me? What if I've already waited too long?" Those questions have been echoing inside them more often than anyone realizes. Yet another voice has become stronger. A calmer voice. A wiser voice. It keeps reminding them that honest conversations may feel uncomfortable for a moment. But unanswered questions can last for years. That realization has become impossible to ignore. Now picture this. An ordinary day. Nothing unusual. No dramatic announcement. No perfect timing. Just one unexpected opportunity. A message begins to form. It is written. Then erased. Written again. Then changed. Your soulmate reads every sentence more than once, wondering whether the words finally say what has been locked inside for so long. Not because they want sympathy. Not because they want to rewrite the past. But because they want you to understand something they should have shared much earlier. That the frustration you felt was never the complete story. That the distance was never as simple as it appeared. That behind every confusing moment stood someone trying to balance loyalty, expectations, fear, and genuine emotion all at the same time. And perhaps the greatest truth of all. They never truly wanted their family to become the bridge, or the barrier, between two hearts. They simply didn't know how to untangle everything once the situation became complicated. Now the future looks different. Not because every problem has disappeared, but because clarity has finally begun replacing confusion. There is a powerful lesson hidden inside this entire journey. Never allow assumptions to become stronger than honest conversations. Never let borrowed opinions erase the evidence of someone's consistent character. And never forget that people often carry struggles you cannot see simply by looking at their silence. If you've stayed until this moment, you've already discovered something valuable. The truth is rarely found in the loudest voices. It is usually waiting beneath the surface, patiently revealing itself to those willing to look deeper. Before this chapter ends, remember one final thought. Some stories aren't delayed because they are meant to fail. They are delayed because understanding needs time to catch up with emotion. The chapter ahead is no longer about hidden conversations. It is about what happens after the truth is finally spoken. And that next step has the power to change everything you thought you knew. Don't leave just yet, because this is the chapter where hidden emotions stop living in silence and begin searching for a voice. Everything that has unfolded until now has been leading to this moment. Not a dramatic ending, but a meaningful beginning. Sometimes the greatest turning points arrive quietly, without warning, and only later do we realize they changed everything. Picture your soulmate standing alone for a moment. No family voices. No outside opinions. No expectations. Just their own thoughts. For the first time in a long while, they are no longer asking everyone else what they should believe. Instead, they are asking themselves one simple question. What does my heart already know? That question is powerful. Because it cannot be answered by rumors. It cannot be answered by assumptions. It can only be answered through truth. And truth has been patiently waiting. Your soulmate begins replaying every memory once more. Not through the lens of fear, but through the lens of honesty. The moments that once seemed confusing suddenly become clear. The conversations they misunderstood begin making sense. The distance that once looked intentional now feels like the result of pressure rather than choice. Little by little, the emotional fog starts disappearing. What once felt like anger begins revealing itself as frustration. What once appeared to be rejection now looks more like uncertainty. And what once seemed impossible slowly begins looking possible again. Life has an interesting way of teaching this lesson. People can misunderstand each other for weeks. Sometimes months. Yet one sincere conversation can accomplish what endless guessing never could. That conversation is closer than either of you expects. Not because destiny forces it, but because avoiding it has become harder than facing it. When that moment arrives, there won't be perfect words. There won't be a flawless speech. There will simply be honesty. Honesty about confusion. Honesty about family pressure. Honesty about fear. And most importantly, honesty about feelings that never truly disappeared. Listen carefully. If this story has reminded you of the importance of patience, understanding, and looking beyond first impressions, you're warmly invited to share your thoughts below. Someone reading your comment may find hope in your words. And if these journeys continue to inspire you, subscribing is a simple way to join us for the next chapter together. Now let me leave you with something worth carrying into every relationship you build. Never rush to write the ending while someone is still living through the middle of their story. Every person has chapters you cannot see. Every silence has a reason waiting to be understood. Every misunderstanding carries the possibility of becoming wisdom, if both hearts are willing to seek truth instead of assumptions. So if this message found you today, don't let it become just another story you heard. Let it become a reminder. Choose conversations over conclusions. Choose understanding over imagination. Choose patience over panic. Because the strongest connections are not the ones that never face challenges. They are the ones that learn how to move through uncertainty with honesty, respect, and courage. As this journey comes to a close, remember this final thought. The truth that remained hidden did not stay hidden forever. It slowly found its way into the light. And once truth enters the room, confusion loses its power. Fear begins to fade. Hope quietly returns. Perhaps the next chapter of your story has not been waiting for the perfect moment. Perhaps it has simply been waiting for the courage to begin. Until our paths cross again, keep your heart open, keep your mind clear, and never underestimate what one honest conversation can change.